huge experience over many years on these issues, not just, of course, as a psychologist and former basketball player, but you're one of the go-to people in the country for things like unconscious bias training. And we're understanding, I think, from this report that the government is suggesting that that should be scrapped.
So, to be absolutely clear, I have a somewhat controversial opinion on unconscious bias.
Right, okay, go on.
It's not real. There's nothing unconscious about it. Bias is real. Unconscious bias is a corporate construct that allows people to feel moderately better about themselves for behaving poorly. Mm. When in a workplace you massage the shoulders of the woman at the table next to you, it's not unconscious.
It's very conscious.
When you trample over the end of the sentence of a junior colleague because you don't think that what they say matters, it's not unconscious. And when, as in some of the workplaces we work in, we've done research in professional services and found that for Black colleagues, upwards of 3/4 of them in the last year have experienced microaggressions. Upwards of a quarter, that's 1 in 4, have experienced incidents of overt racism in the last year. That's not unconscious. So yes, unconscious bias doesn't work because unconscious bias isn't real. But bias works, and anti-bias training can work. It's a function. Susan Michie is remarkable. She's on the government SAGE committee. I don't think anybody listens to her, but she talks about behavior change. She's kind of the mother of it. And, we need to improve people's knowledge. We need to improve people's capabilities. We need to improve people's motivation. And we need to give people opportunity to demonstrate the skills that they have to be anti-racist, anti-homophobic, anti-sexist. We've seen that, all of this, in the last few months.
Thank you for mentioning Susan Michie. I spoke to her on Monday. John, the report suggests that Britain is a model. It's a beacon for diversity globally. Do you accept that?
I never understand the need for national exceptionalism. Why must it always be that? Well, I lived in America for a long period of time, and the idea that America is the best country in the world, and if you don't say that, or if you suggest it's not in any dimension, you are somehow a traitorous person. And now we're going down that road where we have to be there. Listen, it's not about being a model. It's about looking at our people, the people in this country, the people who have decided to make their lives here and contribute here, and saying, should it not be the case that if one is passionate and driven and effortful, your experience should not be massively differential from the person next to you on the bus, on the tube, walking down the street? I'm just not interested in this idea of we're a model of. We're not a model of. Your own report and every report since and before has talked about individual elements of clearly institutional bias, whether it's about misogyny and women, whether it's about ethnicity and race in this case. And here we are. And it feels to me like this report has looked and said, well, there is institutional racism here in this part of society, and there's institutional racism here in this part. But because we found a place where it isn't institutional, it can't be overall. And that's not how it works. It feels like this report thinks that racism is a function of bad people doing bad things. And that's not what racism is. It is indeed racist to yell the N-word at a Black person. But that is not the sum total of racism's power. I was thinking, this is such a gut punch. I heard your introduction. It's such a gut punch because this kind of report gives a blue tick of verification. It verifies and validates the narrative of racists out there who want to believe that not all. It's not. It's about some individual somewhere that's causing racism, and it's not about the system.
John, how do we keep the hope in the face of this? I've got to say that my political assessment this morning is pretty bleak, because it was the case that there seemed to be an emerging consensus in Britain that we needed to turn the page on this and deal with these problems. It feels like we may be going backwards this morning. That's my assessment. It's inevitably a political assessment. What's your assessment?
So to murder your analogy, I think we aren't trying to turn the page or trying to close the book on this. Britain is not racist, and now move on. And of course, the natural fallout from this is the idea that those who do not achieve are somehow broken or have not achieved due to their own deficiencies, their own individual deficiencies. And if groups of people like Black people or women don't achieve in certain environments, it's because those groups of people, Black people or women, are all deficient in a similar way. It's a very old-fashioned racist trope, sexist trope, and I'm not here for it. How do we move forward? Black and brown people, white allies out there, people who want a society where there is equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome, equality of opportunity. You need to decide where you stand. This is the thing with issues of conscience. It's not enough to think something is wrong. You have to say that you think something is wrong, tell people what you stand for, and tell people what you won't stand for, and then live by the implications of that. Today, I say to people, I am anti-racist, I am anti-misogynist, I am anti-homophobic and transphobic, I am anti-Islamophobic, I am anti-Semitism. I'm against all of these things, and I want to be tested on that. And I want everybody who comes into my circle of influence to know that I will not tolerate that. Yes, I will be the fun sponge. Yes, I will be the politically correct person. Yes, I will be the person who speaks up if you misspeak. That action is what is required. Equality is not a spectator sport. People seem to think it's like going to the pantomime, if you're old enough and of a certain age, I suppose, going to the pantomime and you think that you're doing something because you yell when the bad guy is creeping up behind the hero. And because you yell from the audience and the hero turns around and saves the day, you think you've done something. Black squares on Instagram, hashtags, these are necessary, but insufficient, especially in the face of a denial of reality. Black and brown people out there, you are not delusional. Your experience is not a myth. Our experience is not a myth.
John, thank you so much for your sage words this morning. I think it's lifted my spirits, and it will have lifted many, many listeners' spirits, black and white. Very, very grateful. I wish the government had asked you to lead this review, but let's see.